There we are. We're live. Hi, everyone. This is Thomas Newman of VIVA Financial Tuition, and I'm being joined by my colleagues, Hugo Newman and Hugh Martin.
Hello.
So this is the third Ask Me Anything session, AMA session that we've run recently, and we've certainly enjoyed them, and I think they've been useful for students as well to clarify any Cima related doubts that they have. So we're recording this session, and we'll make it available on our YouTube channel in the next couple of days. But the idea is that, as I said, you resolve any doubts, questions that you have in relation to your Cima studies, and you've got a chat box there to the right of the webinar. So do make use of that. You see there's a little chat icon that you can type your comments into. And you can also probably join in. There should be a way to join via the speak button. It's been very hit or miss in our previous webinar sessions, but it would be lovely to, it has worked on occasions where a student is actually able to call into the webinar and can actually speak, and we can see the students asking the question, and that's great. So feel free to avail of that and give that a go as well. So two ways to ask your questions: through the speak request, or by typing into the chat box. Okay, so we'll see how long this runs for today. We've got 60 minutes booked up. It might be shorter. It could be 30 minutes. It could be 40 minutes. But whatever you want to ask, as I said, go for it. It's over to you. So I think we've actually got one question from Donal. It's okay, quite a long one. I'm going to read it out. I'm not sure if it's a follow-on to some other comment that you made, Donald, but
no, there's another question below it, Tom. Yeah,
is there?
Yeah. If you scroll down, you should see Donald's first question there.
Yeah. So maybe someone else can read it out, because I think what happened was I joined last, and I don't see the first comment. So maybe Hugh or Hugo could read it.
Yeah.
It's addressed at me, I think, anyway. But okay. I see there, Donald. Hi there. Am I right in saying that I can't book my case study exam until I've successfully passed all of the objective test questions? I think in a recent webinar, and I think you're referring to the Cima webinar that was maybe last week, Hugh mentioned that it was possible to book your case study exam before passing them. Thank you. The answer to that, Donald, is, to the best of my knowledge, you can't book your case study exam unless you've passed the 3 prerequisite objective papers. That was certainly the case in my time. So if you have not, say for example, you're at the management level, if you haven't passed E2, P2 and F2, you can't sit the MCS exam. I don't think the system will even let you book it. It's good to think about when you want to sit it, for sure, and I think that was the theme of that webinar. But in terms of actually physically booking the case study exams, I don't think you can actually do it until you've passed the objective papers for that level. So hopefully that answers your question.
And then there's the follow-on. Let's see. Do you want me to read this one out?
Go for it.
Sure. So this is Donald again. Also, it's a little unclear as to whether there's actually any new material that needs to be covered in the case study exam. Are there new books, or is it just that Cima provides you pre-seen material that you need to know inside out, but that you would just use the books I studied as part of the objective test exam preparation? Is that correct? I presume so, but I just wanted to check. And finally, I'm due to sit the risk management objective test exam on the 19th of March as my last objective test, and plan on sitting the case study exam in 24th to 26th of May. I presume having, say, 8 or 9 weeks to study for the case study works well. Thanks. Okay, so who wants to take the first part there about the books?
My understanding is from there is so with the case study exam, there's no new material really that comes on top for the case study. So you've done your E3, P3, F3 objective test, and you've probably read textbooks there and studied courses and watched videos. So there's no new technical information that comes on top of that, or technical study to do. It is a case of really knowing the pre-seen inside out. It's also a case of understanding the real life industry a little bit, but it's mostly the pre-seen and thinking about doing mock exams based on that pre-seen, etc. So yeah, and you're due to sit the risk management objective test exam. I presume that is P3 on the 19th of March. And 8 or 9 weeks is plenty of time to prepare for the case study. Absolutely plenty of time, I would say. Yeah. Okay, so we've got Lee then next asking.
Can I just make one qualification there on that?
Yes.
Sorry, just in case, I misunderstood the question, or when you talk about new books, I suppose there's a possibility Donal is referring to the old syllabus. Maybe there, it may be the case, for example, that you studied the objective tests under the old syllabus, and in that case, are there new books for the new syllabus? If that's what you mean, then yes, there are new books for the new syllabus. But that might not be what you meant. You might just mean, are there new books for the case study itself? In which case, Thomas is correct. There isn't any new technical theory that is presented with the case study or for the case study. It's just the pre-seen material.
Yeah. So let me see. Lee then asks, says, good afternoon. I used your material for the MCS and found it excellent. Thank you, Lee. My questions. Using your videos and question practice material, is that enough to pass the E3 objective test exam, or do you need to read the BPP study book as well? Thank you. Good question, Lee. This is kind of something that comes up from time to time in these sessions. It's, what is the best way to prepare for the objective test exams? And, what I've suggested before is that, what you suggest there, which is very much in line with what VIVA has for the E3 course, which is lots and lots of videos with a very good tutor doing those videos, a guy called Ben Wilson. He was former head of Cima at Kaplan in a previous life. But he goes into a great deal of depth on the E3 topics, and he explains the topics in a very succinct way and a very understandable, jargon-free way. He's really, really good. So I think it's a great start to go through the videos and to focus as well on the objective, on the questions at the end of every chapter. And I think that'll take you most of the way. And I think, the BPP texts are included also as part of, VIVA's all access offer. For every objective test subject, the BPP texts are included. And I think they're really good to go to for areas of particular difficulty or your weaknesses. You will know, having gone through the video lessons and having gone through the questions at the end of a chapter, where you're struggling and where you're weak. And it's there you really need to dive into the text, because that gives you kind of a little bit of additional information. I don't think it's a good idea to start with the text, because I think so many students do that and they get very bogged down in the technicalities of the text, very, very dry reading, in general. And it doesn't necessarily clarify all of the concepts in a way that, an experienced tutor would, like Ben. So I think the order that you would go through the objective test courses would be: start with the video lectures, do the questions at the end of every chapter, and start with question practice from day one. Identify the weaknesses that, are obvious from the questions. And, having gone through the video materials, what are your weaknesses? What are the areas you're finding difficult to understand? Then go to the textbook and read over the weaknesses in detail. That would be the approach I would take. So, let me see. Ginali has the next question about the MCS. So she says, I just had a quick question regarding the MCS exam. I read somewhere that gateway students are recommended to learn the management level and the operational level theory. Is this true, or will the management level theory suffice for the exam, please? I think that's an interesting comment. Certainly it's the case that the gateway exam has the very highest fail rate by quite a considerable distance. And I think the reason is obvious. It's because, students who are taking the gateway exams, their very first Cima exam, they've had exemptions from the whole operational level. They've had exemptions from E2, F2, and P2, and they're sitting the gateway exam with, and they're kind of competing with students who have covered those two levels. So it's normal that they wouldn't have the same degree of technical skill. So I think, first of all, it is wise to go back and review technical theory certainly from the management level. So that means going back on E2, F2, and P2. Now, whether you actually need to go all the way back to the operational level and cover all of the theory from E1, F1, and P1, I'm less certain that's a good use of your time, to be quite honest with you. And I think it's asking a lot. But Hugh, maybe you've different, maybe you think differently on that one.
I think I agree with you, Thomas, on that. You have to think about your time is quite constrained for the case study exams, and what's the opportunity cost of you going into the operational level? It's basically you sacrificing time at the management level. So I would agree with Thomas on that and say perhaps if there's maybe an aspect that you may feel you're not that up to speed with, maybe, but if you look at the way the syllabus is laid out for the management level, quite often it builds upon what you learn at the operational level. So, for example, in P2, there's a topic on activity-based costing. So, that just builds upon activity-based costing from P1. So, if you go through the management level, P2, E2, F2, there will be chapters in there that are kind of repeated from the operational level. So you don't have to go through the operational level. Essentially, a lot of that material that is replicated across those two levels, you'll cover it anyway by virtue of just going through the material. So I would say no.
I would make just two additional points there very quickly. One is that E2 in particular is quite distinct from E1. And there isn't a great deal of overlap between the two. And so I would say it's highly unlikely you're going to be examined on E1-like topics in the case study at the management level. So I don't think there's any need to go back to E1, certainly. You focus only on E2. Another point I would make is, and I say this over and over again, I'm sure the lads are sick of hearing me say this, but it is I think it's a very useful place to start for people like you who maybe need to figure out where the gaps are in their knowledge, or if there are gaps in their knowledge. And a good place to start would be with the objective theory review videos that we have in our foundational materials with the management case study course. If you start with foundational materials, you'll see there are objective theory review videos, and that gives you just a very good introductory overview of what's included in each of the subjects. And you'll be able to look at say P2 and P2 F2, and you might see, okay, I haven't actually studied that before, but I'm not familiar with that, and that gives you a good place to start, I think, without having to go straight into the textbook or something like that, which can be quite arduous.
Yeah. Let me see. So Rick Heel has a question there. Maybe Hugh, you want to take that one?
Sure. So, hi all, I am exempt from sitting E3, P3 and F3 exams. However, sitting the SCS exam and as such covering the learning material for these modules. I've previously sat the MCS exam. So the question is, how different is the MCS exam to the SCS? And do you have any recommendations on to what extent and detail to learn the content from E3, P3 and F3 in preparation for the SCS? So that's a good question, and quite a difficult situation to be in if you've had exemptions from all three subjects and then you're going into the exam. It's a bit like the kind of gateway a little bit. But I suppose, to be honest, to answer your first question, the big difference is with the SCS, you'll only have 3 sections. So 3 sections with 60 minutes each instead of having 4 sections with 45 minutes each. So that's a big difference. A lot of students find it a bit more doable in that regard. You only have to be focused on 3 sections rather than 4. That's a good thing that's going in your favor. I think with the SCS, typically what you find is the questions are a bit more opinion-based and open-ended. So you can have lots of different types of answers for the strategic type of questions. They're relying on you knowing the information quite well, but also being able to apply it a little bit more to the scenario than what you would have at the MCS. The MCS aspects of it are very prescriptive. So you have to know accounting standards. You have to know certain aspects of P2 that are either right or wrong. So investment criteria, those kind of topics, either they're right or wrong. They're kind of binary subjects. Whereas with SCS, there's a lot more opinion, a lot more recommendations, a lot more evaluating. So it's a bit different in that regard. But definitely, if you've done well in the MCS, you can definitely do well in the SCS. Both exams are doable. And then second question, what recommendation to the extent do you have to kind of go through each of those? I mean, to kind of give you a bit of a warning, anything can come up from any three of those areas on your SCS exam. So it is important that you cover all of the syllabus and you don't just, pick and choose different topics. We have some videos for the case study sittings. We have E3 applied, P3 applied, and F3 applied. And those videos kind of look at how we would maybe approach different questions or different scenarios with that kind of objective level in mind. But it is important that you go through the entire syllabus. So I would recommend that, you start going through the video content that we have for each of those, familiarize yourself with the syllabus for each of those. But, really in terms of kind of studying for the SCS, the important thing is that you're practicing questions, you're doing mock papers, you're going through the past papers, seeing how content is tested. If you've been given exemptions, you probably know a lot of the information already. It's just the way in which it's been phrased. So that would be my recommendation. I don't know if the other guys have different suggestions.
No, I think that's great.
Yeah.
So, Maz, thank you for your comment there. Thanks for holding these sessions. They're great. Yeah, we really like doing them. Let me see. Donal has another question there. So I sat the objective tests in the past 3 months. Yes. Okay. Sorry to say, but I just bought the Kaplan books for those exams 3 months ago or so. That's okay. They're good texts, So I presume that was on the new syllabus. Yeah. If you were taking the exams in the last 3 months, that was all new syllabus stuff. So it sounds like the information is very fresh, and therefore should there not be any new material for the case study? So there's not going to be any new technical information that you'd be expected to know for the case study exam, Donal. You're covered.
There's a question underneath, Donal, there from Luvo. Maybe I don't know. Did we miss that one in the scroll? But
yes.
I'll read it out.
Yeah.
I'm a gateway student who failed MCS in August. Is it possible to get the printable version of the study text and video download? As in our country, South Africa, we have load shedding challenges, so access to internet becomes a challenge. The answer there is we don't have a printable copy of the BPP textbook. I assume is the study text there. I assume that's what you're referring to. And in terms of video downloads, believe the answer there is no. We don't have that functionality at the moment.
So everything at Viva is accessible through vivatuition.com. You can download. So you cannot download the BPP text that we have for all of the objective test subjects. However, all of the supporting presentations for the MCS, for example, and the case studies, such as the industry analysis, the annotated pre-scene, the financial ratios, the mock exams themselves, you can actually download all of those in PDF format. Okay, so that would certainly be helpful, if you're having issues with internet connection. So Maz asks, how much time is sufficient for the preparation of case studies? For operational and management, I left myself 3 months, which is probably excessive, but it meant I had to rush the OT exams. I think Donal asking whether 8 or 9 weeks was enough to prepare for a case study, and I think absolutely it is. I mean, it's important also to mention that, Cima releases the pre-scene to students, I think 7 weeks before the exam, 7-8 weeks. So, the intention is that is the maximum amount of time you would have. So it's plenty, especially if you have covered, if you've done the 3 objective test exams at your level and, you feel comfortable with them, then 8 weeks is absolutely loads of time. Okay. So Sanjita has a question. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. How can I approach preparing for the OCS exams? I've forgotten the theory. Do I look at the task questions, revise the theory and attempt the questions, or do I go through all the I can statements systematically, then attempt the questions pertaining to that section only, i.e. A, B, C, etc.? Hugh, do you want to give that one a go?
Sure. So it's a good question. And, I understand what you're saying there. I suppose the big warning with the I can statements is that they're quite vague. So, to kind of practice aspects of the I can statements, especially as you climb up the different case study sittings, so the MCS and the SCS, they get more and more vague, which means it's quite hard to pinpoint what area of the syllabus they're talking about. So I would have a look at the I can statement, certainly, but I wouldn't spend too much time on them, because they're deliberately left quite open-ended, so CIMA can test a variety of things underneath those different I can statements. If you were to look at the past papers, it mightn't be very easy to actually trace which subtask is related to which I can statement. So I would just be a bit hesitant with just looking at the I can statements. The best thing that I would say is maybe have a look through the past papers for the 2019 syllabus, so the 2020 papers. They're the only ones that are available on the CIMA website at the moment. They actually removed all the old ones. So if you have a look at those and try to see, could you answer that question if it came up for your particular pre-scene? So the one in the last sitting was amazing beds. So you would ask yourself, well, if this came up for amazing beds, could I answer this question? And go through each one as well. There's a resource out there. You can, if you type this into Google, there's a 2019 prototype exam, which CIMA put together for students and tuition providers, which basically gives people an idea, I suppose, as to what kind of structure the exam will have. But that prototype exam has some subtasks that you could practice as well, and just try and see how would I approach that if it came up for my pre-scene. So maybe Hugo, you might have a different opinion to me, but that's my 2 cents on that.
You've forgotten the theory. I mean, yeah. It's important to remember the theory.
Yes.
Yeah. It really is, I mean,
but I understand. Yeah, I mean, I completely understand. I was the same as a CIMA student. I forgot the theory on many an occasion. Yeah, many an occasion.
Perfectly normal. So, but it is important to address that. I mean, not to sound like a broken record or anything, but, a good place to start again is with those review videos for the objective tests. And to kind of see where the really big gaps in your knowledge are, and start there, I would say. I mean, if you feel like you've forgotten everything, again, identify those major gaps, go back, look at the videos maybe for those, and then do the practice questions. And then with the ones where you feel like you do have some knowledge, you could maybe just start with the practice questions and test yourself on that, to see what level it seems your knowledge is at. But, I wouldn't get too bogged down in that either, because part of the great thing about VIVA's case study course is that we spend so much time applying theory in both pre-scene analysis and in those applied videos for EP and F. And that in itself will kind of start jogging your memory. I think it really help you retrace your steps theoretically, so to speak. So, start with maybe those review videos, but I would say you could go down the rabbit hole with that, is what I would say. So maybe a quick refresher on the major areas that you feel you've lost or forgotten, and then dive straight back into the pre-scene analysis, into the EP and F applied videos. And that way you'll start kind of retrieving a lot of the stuff that you thought you had lost. I don't know, that's my opinion.
Yeah, I think there are two kind of extremes that students kind of commit to with the case study exam when it comes to theory. On the one extreme, you've got students who, as Hugo said, go down the rabbit hole with the theory. So what they do is they go to their textbook and they just spend most of their time reading back through the textbooks, E1, P1, F1, if they're doing the operational case study, and that they spend most of their time just reading the textbooks. That's a terrible way to prepare for the case study exam, because the case study exam is not a test of theory. By the way, that would also be a terrible way to prepare for the objective test exams, because you are avoiding doing, testing yourself, which is obviously what will be happening on the day of the exam. So it's also a bad way to prepare for the case study exams, because what you're doing is on the day of the exam, you're sitting and you're writing essay style assessments. And, it's a completely different beast to what you've done while preparing, which is just reading a text. So that's one extreme, students who spend all of their time just reviewing theory. And the other extreme then is students who don't review any theory whatsoever. Okay, so neither one of those is good. What you want to do is you want the middle ground. So, you've got to recognize that the case study is not a theory test. It's all about applying theory. So as Hugo said, what we do with the case study courses is we talk about a lot of theories, but we always bring them back to the case. So whatever theory we talk about, we remind you at a high level what it is, and then we just talk about it in the context of the business from the pre-scene. That's the best way to learn theory for the case study. So you're just always with that mindset of how does this apply to the pre-scene company? That's a great way to refresh your memory about these theories. Okay. Okay, so Ginali asks a really interesting question there next. She says, I would like to try to get through Cima within a year, starting at the gateway exam, which I'm sitting in May, and finishing with the SCS exam in November. Just wanted your guys' opinion on how feasible this is with the delays in getting back case study results and sitting 3 objective tests in between, please. Would you say that it is possible to get through each objective test exam in around 4 to 5 weeks? Yes, I mean, it's ambitious, but you can do it. So recently I conducted an interview with a former VIVA student and a former Cima prize winner. So, if you're familiar with our YouTube channel, and even if you're not, I would recommend you go along and check that out. It's actually, I think it's the most recent interview or YouTube post that we've done. And it was really interesting because this was someone who did the entire Cima qualification from E1 in just over a year. He did it about a year and a half, very, very, very quickly. I mean, I was amazed. It was fantastic. Great story. I mean, that's not necessarily at all a typical case. And he was telling me that, he just decided it was the start of the, coronavirus situation. He was bored. He said, I'm just going to sit here for the next year and just get through the Cima qualification. And, that's an amazing achievement. But he was dedicating during the week, probably 3 hours a day to Cima study. And at the weekends, Saturdays, he was dedicating 5 or 6 hours. And he was able to work through it very quickly. I don't think that's necessarily the best approach for everyone, though. But, you're talking about doing 5 exams. In sort of how many months from starting in May? So let's say you got through the exam in May, then you would have June, July, August, September, 4 months for 3 exams, 1 a month maybe. It's doable. It's definitely doable. Yes, if you dedicate quite a bit of time to each of those, if you're serious about them, and with the objective tests, as I said, you've got to don't get too bogged down in the textbook. Start with a good, online course like the ones Viva has with, video lessons. Do the video lessons first. And while at the end of each chapter, you're doing questions, you're seeing where you're weak. You get used to taking questions in a time pressured way, just like in the real exam. And it's not a shock then when you sit the exam on the day of the exam. And, when you see your weaknesses, go to the text there and you can work through the courses quickly in that way. So very best of luck with that. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Come back and tell us how you get on with that. And you might be the next YouTube interview, the next YouTube star on the Viva channel. We'd love to hear about that. So Vicky says, I love the Viva videos. Oh, brilliant. Thank you. However, it would be really useful to be able to cast these to a TV and have the option of autoplay, similar to watching YouTube videos, rather than having to close the window, select the next video, set it playing. Is there any plan to introduce anything like this? Please, Hugo, take that one.
Vicky, yes. Yeah. Thank you for that question. Very, very timely question, because we're actually in the process of making some big improvements and adding new features to our learning platform.
Yeah.
And one of the things we're looking at is improving the navigation aspect of our courses and the way that you flow through the videos and the way they link up. And certainly something like an autoplay would be a very interesting idea as well. Mm-hmm. And so that's something we could look at incorporating into the new layout. As for the casting to a TV, that is also something we haven't talked about, but certainly is something worth considering, I think.
Yeah, so I think with YouTube, it's pretty easily done.
Yeah.
I mean, we host our videos in Vimeo, They should have some kind of equivalent possibility, I would imagine. But okay, that's a technical question, I suppose, for our developers as well, you know. But it's something we will add to the list of features we're currently developing. Yeah, that's a really good comment, Vicky. Thank you very much for that. We will definitely be thinking about those two, the autoplay and, you know, casting of the videos to TV. Okay. Rakeel, you're very welcome. An amazing answer. Thank you. That was Hugh, I think, answered that one.
Thank you very much.
So let me see. Next one is so Rakeel says, what is the difference between the packages that VIVA offer for SCS? So yeah, I suppose there are a range of options currently when it comes to you know, purchasing courses and things from VIVA. With the SCS at the moment, we've got one pack which is you know, the basic pack, which includes, you know, you can attend 7 live webinars that we will run for the SCS. You know, they'll be starting soon for May, and you get 3 mock exams. And that's it, I think. Then with the next pack up, it's all of that plus 2 additional mock exams. So you'd have 5 mock exams in total, and you would have access to the 7 live webinars as well. And the next one up, then the final one is called the Genius Pack, which it's all of that plus you get marking of your mocks. But something we have launched recently, and it's so new that it's not actually even featured on the website, but we do have some pages that we can send you a link to the page which goes into detail on this particular course. The most complete course that we have for the SCS is called the SCS Elite course, and Hugh is the tutor for that particular course, and that's by far and away the most comprehensive course that we have, and that involves everything I've just described, but it involves 6 to 7 additional live workshops with Hugh. It involves 2 one-to-one calls with Hugh, so you could talk about your strengths, weaknesses, and an individual strategy, you know, a study plan for your SCS. It involves marking services, and it involves, you know, lots and lots of feedback and interaction with your tutor, which in this case is Hugh. And we've had very, very good success with that. We're seeing very, very good results with students who are taking that particular course. So what I can do is I'll send you the link after this webinar to that. It's called the SCS Elite course. So they're the options for the SCS. Now, the other option, but you know, the most comprehensive, you know, sort of package that you can currently purchase on the website is called All Access, and that's you know, it's like paying for a Netflix subscription. You know, you buy your Netflix subscription and you get access to everything on Netflix, and you choose the shows you want to see. So it's something similar with All Access membership at VIVA. So you pay £299 for 1 year of access to everything at vivatuition.com. So you get access to the SCS course, you get access to the E3 course, the F3 course, the P3 course, and all of the previous courses as well. So that's really useful, because if you're taking the SCS, for example, and you really need to brush up on some theory from P3 or F3, you can jump back to those courses and go through all of those videos and go through all of those questions. So, you know, that's a great offer. I think, you know, in the future, that's what we will be offering exclusively. So we'll get rid of the individual course options, and we will just offer all access subscription, probably for 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months. And that would allow you to have access to everything. It's just a really simple, neat way to access everything. We can sell it for a really low price compared to other tuition providers. It's really good value, and it gives the students complete flexibility in what they need to access. So that's the best option we find for students. So I hope that's I hope I haven't confused you there with all of that. But I will send you the link to the SCS Elite course, because that's a great course, and you know, we've got one coming up for May on that one. Okay.
So next we have Keshri there with a question for Hugh.
Yeah. Okay, I'll read it out here. Hi everyone, my question's for Hugh. So what would you suggest is the best approach for answering multiple choice answer objective test questions aside from the process of elimination and specific to the P3 test? Thank you. I suppose the best way maybe to approach questions, this is how I would have done it in when I was sitting P3, is we all know, okay, with the kind of questions that are select all that apply process of elimination. So we're assuming that everyone kind of knows that technique. But what I would do is if the question is something that you intuitively know, so chances are with P3, you'll have some, if you've been studying lots of practice questions, you've been doing mock papers, you've been doing practice over and over, you'll have some questions that you will intuitively know the answer to. Okay, so these are ones that you'll look at and you'll know the answer straight away. You won't even have to look at the multiple choice. Ideally, that does kind of happen after a while going through, VIVA, we have about, I think it's 800 questions or so for P3. So, if you've done all 800 and, you're quite good at P3, chances are maybe 5 or 10 questions that come up in your paper, you'll intuitively know the answer to. So with those ones, don't waste too much time on them. If you know the answer, go through it quickly. If it's one where you have to calculate something, so there are a lot of students overlook this. There are calculations technically in P3, so VAR is tested. If there's a calculations-based question and you do the calculation and the calculation is there in the answer, then again, that's almost in that certainty category. So don't waste too much time going over it and over and over. What tends to happen though is maybe the bulk of the exam, you might be unsure. So, a question comes up, maybe it's a select all that applies or a drag and drop or one answer is correct. If you're very uncertain, you just have to pick the answer that seems most correct to you. And what I would do is I would flag it if it's one that you're really not sure about. So, I mean, you probably know yourself, if you've sat any of the objective papers, there'll probably be at least, a handful of questions that you're looking at going, this is the best guess I could possibly give. If that is the case, flag it and then move on. So you can think about it for a while, but don't spend too much time on it. Flag it and then come back to it. And again, just reevaluate. Sometimes when you go through the entire paper, I found this myself, you may get hints. A question might inspire you to kind of have an answer for the one that you flagged previously. So I found myself when I came to the end of the paper, I went back into the questions again. From looking at other questions, kind of just triggered some information that was helpful for a question that I flagged. So the whole flagging does work. I found, when I did my papers, I'd normally have about 15 to 18 questions flagged. And then I would go back and just, it's probably not the most, I suppose it's maybe not the advice that people want to hear, but sometimes you kind of just have to take the best guess that you possibly can. If it's a question that you just don't know the answer to, unfortunately, there's not much you can really do there other than just try as much as possible to kind of get the most close answer that you can, unfortunately. But that's what I would do. I would just divide it into categories, ones that I'm super certain about, ones that I'm okay with, but I can press on, and ones that I have to flag and go back to.
Yeah. I also think it's a good idea, when you get into the objective test exam, it is very time pressured. And, a lot of people are very nervous when they start. I think that's completely normal. Settle your nerves by kind of skimming through the questions initially, because you can go back and forth between the questions and answer the ones you're confident in. It'll settle your nerves. So, you might find if you prepared well, you'll find that probably 70% of the questions you're quite certain that they're, of the answer. Or, you might have maybe 50% of the questions where you're very certain and they're quite quick to answer. So you'll very quickly, have half of the exam answered in under half of the time. And then that will give you, it'll settle your nerves, and it'll also give you plenty of time to answer the more difficult questions. So, yeah. Okay, Donal, final question from me. No worries at all, Donal, because you're asking good questions. Does CIMA provide many mock exams online for students to go over, or do students need to obtain mock exams from external third parties such as VIVA? Hint, hint, cough, pluck. Oh, that's good. So that's for the strategic case study. So yeah, CIMA, doesn't provide mock exams for the current pre-scene. What they do is, they provide some old exams based on old pre-scenes, and they're certainly useful to go back and have a look at. But again, I think, some students make a little bit of a mistake, and they go back to the old exams that CIMA had, they read over the pre-scenes, and they start like doing answers themselves to the old questions. And I think that's a waste of time, to be honest with you. You really need to be concentrating on the current pre-scene and doing mock exams based on the current pre-scene. So CIMA doesn't provide mock exams for the current pre-scene that's coming up in the exams. Tuition providers like VIVA and others do. VIVA has for the SCS 5 mock exams, and I highly recommend that you would check them out. They're part of our courses, and they're part of the all access package. Ideally as well, you would get them corrected. And corrections come as a standard part of that SCS Elite course that I just mentioned. So Donal, I'm going to also send you the link to the SCS Elite course, because from the sounds of it, you might be a very good candidate for that particular course too. Feel free to read through it, and if you have any doubts, drop us an email and we'll clarify things for you. Imelda says, are you guys conducting sessions for SCS soon? Yes, we are. Absolutely. We're running 7 live webinar events in the next couple of months for the SCS. And if you take the SCS Elite course, you will have those 7 live webinar events plus 6 or 7 additional 2-hour workshops with Hugh. So yes, we'll be running all of those soon. Next question from Imelda is, if one enrolls but fails the MCS? I'm not sure. Let me see. Is that, I think, maybe I've misunderstood this. If one enrolls but fails the MCS, because you're talking initially about the SCS. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, Imelda. So maybe you can ask that question again. You could clarify just maybe what you mean there. Let's see, Joe Swan. A question regarding study technique. Okay, interesting one here, I think. Typically, I go through the textbook, I make extensive notes, I pretty much write out the whole textbook. Okay, wow. I'll watch video lectures, but feel these don't really scratch the surface. Then I'll do a week or so of question practice. Can you share how you studied for the OTs? I can share, what my thoughts are on that particular approach. Making notes is a very good idea. Writing out the whole textbook again, I think that's overkill, and I don't think that's necessarily the best approach, because what the science of learning has kind of made clear. So these are psychologists or neuroscientists who study learning, and the most recent research seems to point to, yes, making your own notes is extremely valuable, but they have to be your own. Okay, so it's not much good if you look at the textbook and you're just rewriting it yourself and copying it word for word. What you want to do is close the textbook and see what you can recall yourself and put it into your own words. That's invaluable. Okay, that's a really, really good way to do it. So I would alter your approach there. If you are going through the textbook, close it at the end of the chapter or section or whatever it is, and make your own notes. And you're looking to summarize. You're not looking to replicate it word for word or anything like that. Your own words. Watching the video lectures, but you feel they don't really scratch the surface. I would say, that greatly depends on the person who is doing the video lectures. So, you've all sorts of tutors. Some only scratch the surface, and some go into great depth. Some have little experience, others have a lot of experience. I personally think, if you have the right tutor, the video lectures are a great way to start, because they kind of prepare they give you a base level of understanding, high level understanding, and then, you can go into more depth with the text. I think you're making a mistake by leaving the question practice to the last week. I think it's vital that you're doing questions from the first week. Okay. You don't have to be doing hundreds and hundreds of questions, but every time you do a new topic, you want to be doing questions based on that topic. And as you move through the syllabus, what you also want to be doing is you want to be going back and reviewing old stuff by doing questions as well based on some of the old materials, or else you'll forget them. So that would be my feeling there. It certainly sounds like you're making a lot of effort. I would just fine-tune your approach there based on what I said. But I'm not sure if Hugo or Hugh has anything else there.
Yeah. So yeah, the note-taking thing is, as Thomas mentioned, the science of learning So we've looked into this, as part of structuring our courses, and note taking is an interesting one. It works quite well if you're using one of the most well established in terms of learning and retention of knowledge. One of the most well established techniques is what do you call these flashcards? Isn't that right? The flashcard approach. Yeah. So the flashcard approach for note taking has proven to be very effective if you're relying exclusively on a textbook or heavily on a textbook. So it might be that you come to the end of a topic, for example, you might read through a section on a particular technical topic. And what you want to do in that case is you close the book, and on this flashcard, you write out an explanation of it in your own words, right? And then on the back of the flashcard, you'll write the title of the topic and then just leave it blank. And what you do then is, you might come back after a day or 20. I think what you should be doing is basically you should be reviewing in like 24 hours, and then I think it's 7 days, and then you extend it out further. Now, I mean, it might be difficult to structure your study exactly like that. And I'm not saying you have to do it, but that's the kind of recommended intervals that work quite well with this approach. So what you would do then is after 24 hours, you would take the card, and you would see the topic in the back of it, and you would say, okay, I'm going to explain this in my own words now. And you explain it, and then you turn the card around and you see if you actually remembered everything, and if your own explanation tracks what you wrote down previously. Yeah. That's proven to be a very effective method. But again, I would say that that's what you would do if you were only relying on a textbook. But as Thomas rightly mentioned, I think, you starting with the videos is, despite the fact that you might think it only scratches the surface, starting with the videos, I think, is the right way to go. And then when you feel this hasn't really, something hasn't really stuck, or something hasn't really, and especially you'll find this out when you do the practice questions after the videos, something hasn't stuck, obviously, if you get the questions wrong, then you deeper dive into the textbook. But you can combine those methods, you can combine the video plus practice questions plus textbook with the note-taking for those areas, especially where you're having a lot of trouble. So, for those hard, tricky parts in the textbook, then you would go, okay, flashcard time, and you would do the flashcard approach. And then the next day you would come back to the flashcard and you would look at the topic and say, okay, explain it in my own words. I would say that's a good kind of hybrid approach, and it's based on the science of learning. Yeah,
so I think that's a great point, Hugo. Flashcards are great. And I'm going to add a little bit to that, Joe. Another fantastic way to really retain information is to teach someone else. And you don't have to actually teach. You don't have to corner your mother in the kitchen and lecture her on activity-based costing. But honestly, what you could do is, if you could explain activity-based costing, for example, to your sister or your mom, someone who's non-technical even, in your own words, and actually make it clear to them, you can be sure that you've understood the topic well. If you can explain a technical topic in plain language, that's a sign that you really understand something. So that's a great way to learn as well, is to actually teach someone else. Or even if you got together with a learning partner, someone who is going through the stuff, and to talk it out, it's another great way. Because I think Cima is a very solitary, it can be a very solitary endeavor. I mean, when I was studying Cima, I often had the head down, watching lectures or reading a book and doing exercises. It was all on my own. And I would have definitely loved to have, a group or another person to kind of talk the stuff through with. And Hugo touched on this already. Variety, I think, is key. Text, video, questions, your own notes, talking it out with someone, teaching someone. The more variety, the stickier the stuff will be, definitely. And again, the science of learning demonstrates that very, very clearly. So, there are people who I think they become hung up on, I'm a visual learner. I learn better with diagrams and things, or I'm text only, or I'm audio only. And I think that is kind of has been largely debunked, that kind of approach to learning, where it's, you're one learner or you're one thing or another. I think we all tend to certain things, but the best approach of all is a variety of learning styles. So yeah, I hope that helps. Greg says, I paid and used VIVA to pass the OCS case study in November 20. Great, that's wonderful. And now you're busy doing P2 preparation. And am I correct in saying I only get access to the P2 videos if I become an all-access member? Yes. So the video lectures that are part of each of the objective test courses, they're only accessible if you're a video or if you're an all access member. And you know, I've completely forgotten about all access. I'm going to launch an offer. You see the little offers button here underneath the chat button. There is an offer available now. I'm publishing it, where we usually sell all access for 365 days. That's everything at vivatuition.com for £299. And for the next 2 days, we will offer it to attendees of this webinar for just £229. And you can follow the link there. So if you are interested in that, check it out. It's a fantastic offer. Okay, so Anna says, good evening. Thank you very much for your time. Good to see you again, Anna. Again, me and F2. Ah, yes, I remember you were having a hard time with F2. It's a long slog of a paper, really. You know, it's a big one. I can't relate the chapters to anything I do or ever did at work. I also can't memorize when I can't understand. Please, would you have any advice for me? Yeah, I mean, that's tricky. I am the same as you, Anna. I have a very average memory, and I really need to understand something if I want to be able to remember it. There are other people, I think, who have fantastic memories, and they mightn't understand something fully, but they can just commit it to memory, and that's they're very lucky. But yeah, I think it's important to understand something before you commit it to memory. I don't really know, Anna. I mean, other than I think I would lean to know a little bit more about your approach there to the study of F2. Are you working through a text? Are you working through videos? Are you doing question practices as you go along? So a lot of what I already said before, what we said already before about a good approach to the objective test would stand again. Start with the videos, do questions from minute 1, find out where you're weak, go to the text and dive into detail there. That I think would be what I would say there. So Sanjita says, can you recommend a study timetable for the case study exams? Yes, we previously released a kind of a recommended study timetable for the November exams, and I think we'll do the same for May. So, you know, we'll send that out to students in a few weeks' time. So, I think we're coming towards the end now, so we don't really have much time. Well, let's see if we can take one last question, maybe. So thank you, Imelda, for clarifying. You said thank you. What I mean is, can we access the SCS materials later as we have to resit the MCS? So, you know, if you are an all-access member, you can certainly do that, because what you have access to everything at vivatuition.com for 1 year. So let's say you have to resit the MCS in May, then, you know, you can do that, and you'll have access to all of the SCS courses from your point of purchase for the next 365 days. So that would give you the luxury of being able to access it then, you know, in subsequent windows. So I don't want to be banging on about all access for too long, because I tend to do that. But it's just so great, you know. I feel compelled to tell students about it. Honestly, that's true. I do feel quite compelled to tell students about all access, because we intentionally, you know, we built it from the ground up, knowing sort of what was already out there with other tuition providers and knowing how expensive other materials can be. And we wanted it to be really, really accessible for students and valuable for students. And we really think it is. Certainly the feedback from students has been very, very good. Okay, so.
I just wanted to draw attention to the comment there from Donal. Donal says, just for the crack, lads, but I can't help but see Ronan Keating when looking at Hugo. And I don't know whether that's an insult or a compliment. I'll take that as a compliment, Donal.
Very good.
Suppose, yeah.
Yeah.
And Joe, interestingly, says, feel like I'm scamming you at these prices. Again, an interesting kind of compliment there.
Yeah, that's funny as well. Yeah, look, you know, Joe, that's very funny you should say it, because a couple of students have said to us, you know, I was looking at All Access and I was kind of like, I was a bit confused that the price was so low considering how much is included. And I get that because, you know, you're coming probably from an environment where you've done courses that cost £1,000 a pop or something like that. And then you come and take something with, you know, the All Access membership, which is £299. And it kind of unlocks about sort of 150 hours of videos across the entire qualification and study texts and all sorts of things. You know, we were intentional about that. We just wanted something to be accessible, and people are always very pleasantly surprised, I think, at how good, you know, the quality of the lectures, etc. are. So, you know, our thing is, you know, to keep lower prices, and in that way, we're able to reach a wider audience. So we're not selling, you know, £1,000 courses generally and getting sort of, you know, 10, 15 people in. We've got a wider audience, so that allows us to keep the prices lower. But, you know, the fact we're online only as well, and we've kept the business as lean as possible, that again allows us just to keep costs low and pass the savings on to students. Without
compromising on quality, that's the key.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. We're extremely serious about the quality of the stuff. I think it stands up very, very well compared to the highest price offers. Okay, so yeah, so Dorika asks then, do you offer payments in installments for the Genius Pack for the SCS? No, not for the Genius Pack. So you'd have to purchase that with a one-time purchase. But with the SCS Elite course, which is something that, you know, you get a lot of one-to-one tuition and additional workshops and things like that, and correction services. So very, very personalized. It's the highest end course that we offer. And the price there is £699. But, you know, equivalent courses cost, you know, 1,000 upwards, 1,400, 2,000, 1,200 typically. So again, lower price point than other tuition providers, and probably more included as well, I would say. There we do offer installment plans. So again, I can send you the link after this session, Dorika, to that particular course. So Anna just says, I make massive notes. I write so much, I write the whole textbook. I think that's a problem, Anna. Just as I said before, that's the idea with your own notes, is that it's a summarized version. You know, if you read a 30-page chapter and your notes are 30 pages, I think that's the wrong approach. What you want to do is to condense that into 1 page or 2. And then what that actually focuses you to do is to pull out only the most important information and to be selective in terms of the information you want to retain. So I think that's part of your problem. If you're replicating the text again, it's the wrong approach. You want to be far more selective with the note-taking you do. Vicky says, All Access is amazing. Thank you, Vicky. You see, it means so much more when a student says it, because I can go on about All Access all day, and it sounds like I sound like a used car salesman. You know, it's just, you know, it doesn't ring true. But when students say it, then it actually means something. So thank you very much, Vicky. Okay. I think we're coming to the end now, guys, unfortunately. We are doing more of these sessions, so we're going to run these sessions once a month. And Clarissa, yes, I have to get back to you via email, Clarissa. The OCS Elite course you've signed up for, we're starting to run that in, I think it's from the 26th of March. So we will be sending out a number of emails in relation to that course very soon, Clarissa. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks, Donald. Yeah, take a look at All Access. Great. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, everyone, for your time. And we've recorded the session, so it'll go up on YouTube in the next few days if you want to refer to it again. Check out All Access and take care of yourselves. And we'll talk again in a month when we do another one of these sessions.
You can, by the way, sorry, one very final point, because someone mentioned it there. Sorry, now you can subscribe for free at VIVA. And when you subscribe for free at VIVA, you'll be able to preview a lot of what you'll get with All Access. So you'll have a few free videos, but you'll also get a good overview of everything that's included in the All Access when you unlock it. So that's for anyone who's curious if they want to just get a preview. Anyway, I'll stop there.
Imelda, just one last one. SCS, the Elite course, it's starting. Let me see. It's the, just bear with me now. It is... We're starting that on the 10th of April. Okay. We're going to start that on the 10th of April. But what I'll do again is I'll send you the link to the SCS Elite course where you have more details provided on the web page that we have for that particular course. Great. Thank you very much, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, guys, take care.
Thank you. Bye.